This is Adam Taxin with Chris Bodine, a member of Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership. Chris came to the United States in 2000 and is now an American citizen. He had to relinquish a large handgun collection in 1997 from his native United Kingdom, as well as suffering a ban on semi-automatic rifles several years earlier. This all only served to make his support for the Second Amendment perhaps even stronger than for many people. Chris, I guess we should get started by talking about assault weapons, which is going to be our topic for a few minutes today. The subject of assault weapons and a possible reestablishing of a ban came into a recent presidential debate, but the use of the term assault weapons was, as usual, used badly, and it was inaccurately represented and not challenged by either presidential candidate. So can we perhaps use what happened last week as a teaching opportunity?
Well, yeah, the assault, in quotes, misnomer persists both by most of the media, the uninitiated, and in particular the anti-gun crowd. They see anything that's remotely military in style as assault, when in fact technically and without even resorting to semantics, a true assault weapon is one capable of fully automatic fire. One press of the trigger and the gun will fire repeatedly until empty. The AK-47 pattern rifle is the most maligned culprit, and a clone of this firearm is legally only available as a semi-auto. Each shot has to be fired by deliberately pulling the trigger, which after a single discharge has to be allowed to reset before another can be fired.
Would a ban really change things much?
Well, one thing in particular that needs addressed is the fact that even a ban on the so-called assault weapons would in no way prevent the possibility of mass shootings with such. Neither, too, would restrictions on magazine capacity. Whether gun grabbers like it or not, America's history with firearms has resulted in what they might describe as a country awash with guns. And a significant number of these are either black market items or just simply available, meaning that if law-abiding Joe Public is banned from owning these, we can be sure that there are those who would acquire them anyways. With those who break the law, not only could they always obtain such weapons, but being lawbreakers, by definition, they could in fact convert a semi-auto to full auto quite easily. The ATF means very little to criminals. A firearm's appearance has for a long time been the subject of much energetic derision and has led to a compartmentalizing of categories. In essence, anything that looks remotely like a military weapon suffers from this syndrome, and we should perhaps also include the AR-15 as well, simply because despite being semi-automatic, it looks just like an M16 as issued to our military, the oft-named black rifle.
What can you share about any previous ban situations that you may remember on this type of firearm, leaving aside the Clinton ban?
Oh, yes. As I'm an import from the UK 12 years ago, I well remember the event in 1987 when a certain Michael Ryan in Hungerford, which was Berkshire County, UK, shot 16 people to death and injured another 14, 8 of them seriously. He'd gone around spraying with an AK clone, but he was finally taken out. And the media made great mileage out of his use of an assault weapon. And some months later, the law was changed to outlaw any semi-automatic long arm. Even Mini 14 was one thing I had. The mere fact that the weapon looked military and menacing had the equivalent of the million Mons up in arms. And their pressure, plus the government keen to win votes, led to the inevitable restriction.
Where do you think this all goes?
Well, if something akin to the Clinton ban, which sunsetted in 2004, is re-established, then of course those with legitimate assault weapons will be the ones to suffer, and not the lawbreakers. An AK owner is not by default a madman. The Second Amendment does not distinguish between classes of weapons, and even if the close restriction on full auto possession is taken into account, by the way, those owners perhaps being the most vetted and responsible people anyways, we wouldn't see any discernible reduction in nut job events, such as the Aurora situation. Assault is an action, it's not a firearm.
On that note, let me just thank you for, using the topic of so-called assault weapons as a learning tool. Chris Bodine of Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership, which can be found online at jpfo.org. Thank you for your time today.